Good morning, freedom lovers. So it's an impromptu Saturday. I know it's usually Friday, and last night I had to do a live stream that was set up 2 weeks ago because I had to work. There were some glitches. Hopefully, I've managed to get them all up to all the available channels for everybody now. Um, yeah, so today we're kind of celebrating the 6 months that I've been here with Cafe Lockdown. It was, a bit over 6 months ago that I met Michael, and he brought us into the fold of the Cafe Lockdown crew, which has, made life a whole different realm for me. And it's been amazing to be here with you guys. I wanted to share some more out there concepts now. I've been drip feeding little bits of strange ideas to you guys for quite some time, and the concept of simulation theory just kept popping up in my world for a little while there, and I thought that's a conversation I really want to have. Who can I have a conversation with that would really get this, and I've thrown it out to two people. Both people have come back to me, but Maurice was the first one to come back. And for those of you who have been watching the network for the 2.5 years it's been going, you might remember one of the very first interviews I did was with Maurice and his co-founder of the Inner Light Meditation Center, Allison. And it's great to have him back on after all this time. It's it's been one hell of a journey. Like pretty much from the beginning of the North Queensland Freedom Network, the Inner Light Meditation Center has been a part of my journey. So it's wonderful to introduce him to the Cafe Lockdown crew here. Um, you know, a lot of the concepts that we're going to see here today are going to be, maybe a bit confronting for some people, definitely out there for others. Wayne, how are you? Jerry, how we going? And try and treat it with a bit of an open mind, And while I was thinking about how to introduce this little quote sort of popped into my head.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
So yeah, our own point of view. Where do you stand from this position? How are you viewing this? Just the concept of time. Like by the time the information gets down the camera through the matrix and pops out in your end, when are you watching this? Are you watching this live right now? And is it really live? Because there's a bit of a delay by the time that signal gets to you. And then there's a whole bunch of people who'll be watching this tomorrow. Or for you now, but to me yesterday. These kind of concepts. So another idea to sort of help perhaps digest some of the things we're going to discuss here, or not that we've planned this. This is just going to come straight out of the ether, downloaded from the matrix itself. But yeah, something else to help you sort of consider.
Socrates. The only true wisdom consists in knowing that you know nothing. That's us, dude. Oh, yeah.
Another idea that was coming through while I was thinking about how to introduce this is perhaps you might even find yourself going, what does not compute? Maybe pause at that point. You've got the pause button and just sit in that moment. And I was thinking about, why is the book always better than the movie? Well, as I was reading a book during the week, that answer came to me because I found myself sort of digesting a sort of piece, and I'd stop and I'd look and I'd contemplate that for a bit and realize, hang on, I stepped out for about 5-10 minutes there. Where was I in the book? And I realized that's why I think, at least for me, the book is better, because you take the time to digest the information a little bit slower. So maybe take the time to pause and have a think about some of the concepts if they're hitting you a bit hard, and address, reasons why you might find this confronting if you do. Why am I not seeing this? Why am I angry? How am I reacting to this? These kind of things is things you kind of want to, well, I suggest you have a look at, And another wonderful quote from my favorite movie to help you sort of contemplate that idea.
What if we were lying? Why would we lie to ourselves?
So keep an open mind. Don't lie to yourself. Tell yourself the truth. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my good friend, Maurice. How are you, mate?
Hey, Mark. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, thanks for coming on and having a yarn with us here, man. I think it's a very interesting topic, and I couldn't think of anyone better suited to have this yarn with us. So perhaps, I mean, that's one of those things, like, when I was thinking about, who to reach out to, I hadn't connected with you in quite some time, and I hadn't even looked at your amazing Tea with Mo sort of stuff that you've got available on YouTube. And I've attached a link down into the description for anybody who wants to dive deeper into some of the things that Maurice has to say in his Tea with Mo's lecture in non-duality concepts. Definitely by all means have a look. And if you're in Townsville at any time, whether it's now or later, you can always have a look at the Inner Light Meditation Center, which we also have a link to there. But what I found fascinating was when I went and had a look at that, your Tea with Mo stuff, bang, simulation theory came straight up. I was like, oh, right, okay, this was definitely meant to be. So, when I watched that, I thought you explained it so eloquently, the base principle. So what's a great way, do you think, to introduce this to somebody who's never even contemplated the concept before?
Yeah, right. We can use some of the phrases, as above, so below. Your external reality is a reflection of your internal state of being. The microcosm and the macrocosm are the same. So it's interesting that we as humans seem to be drawn towards playing games. And the way that games have evolved over the years, like I'm 54 now, and I remember the first, Atari game where you'd play, well, there we are, tennis, and it'd be these two paddles with this ball going across. And now we look at the technology of these games. We've got, VR, good old Metas trying to, induct you into their system so that you're totally an avatar on a screen, and you've lost your humanity in a sense. So over those years, we've seen how much technology has advanced and these games become more real and real. And another way of looking at it too is the algorithms that you might find on Facebook or social media. If anyone's still on that platform, you might mention something about, I like Jeeps, and then all of a sudden you're getting an ad popping up for Jeep, and you go, oh wow, what a coincidence, that sort of thing. So we're already seeing signs of how information is relayed back to you that seems to be related to what you've been thinking and what you've been. So we then understand it from a perspective of this is all data, and data can be used in many ways. Positive, negative, can be manipulated, as we've seen, throughout the past many years. And so when we then step into a quantum perspective, the question is, what is the nature of reality? So here we are, in a sense, and I'm just going to go down this path, is that we're taken away from asking and inquiring into the nature of reality by having jobs, by being caught, let's call it, in the matrix, even with the fluoride that's, calcifying the pineal gland. So there's all of these mechanisms to keep you busy, to keep you distracted, and to not allow you to ask the question, well, how is this reality constructed? And so then we fall into a bit of a false narrative that is controlled, that to get from A to B, you need to do things in a certain way and you need to conform. So, we're indoctrinated into this at a very, very young age. So when you start to ask the question, well, what is the nature of reality? Then explore what is there. And so when we go through, I sit in the psycho-spiritual space, so I can easily just tap into, look, everything's one. We're a reflection of, consciousness ourselves. However, there's no real empirical evidence around that. So then the other part of my brain then says, okay, well, what's the science say? And so science is going down that path of quantum physics and suggesting that initially we looked at reality, that reality was matter and energy. And then they realized that there's no such thing as matter, that there's only energy. And then they questioned, well, what is energy? How can we actually look at energy and how can we give it a name? So we have then this concept that reality is just data. Yeah. And then they can break it down even further that everything is coming from shapes, from sacred geometry. So if you go down this rabbit hole, and you'll then find that this information is there. Now, the theory is a self-simulation. So basically it's saying that potentially we're living in a really large quantum computer. And that quantum computer is learning about itself through our experience. And then the people who are actually having this experience are probably our descendants. Now, once again, this is the theory that has been put out there. All right. I'm not saying that this is truth. However, as you know, with Obi-Wan Kenobi, what is your truth? Because your truth will come from a particular perspective. And then that will also then play out in your reality because it's part of a simulation.
Definitely.
It's a big concept to just, here's a couple of minutes.
The thing that pops into me straight away at that point is like, if you get that feeling you're being watched and there's no one there, and you're talking about, maybe it's our ancestors or descendants, depending on which point in time, there's always that idea that the alleged grey aliens, are, from our future version of us, and they're time traveling back to have a look at, and, I guess, sort of check it out from a zoological point of view,
Yeah.
So,
and
and I've had that so many times ever since I was a kid, just feel like there's somebody watching and studying, and I always thought to myself, if I were to step outside and, and I was able to go back in time, I would do the same thing, no doubt, just out of morbid curiosity, and again, that's why bringing the Bill and Ted thing in is so relevant, because there's that time travel concept.
Yeah, like even Rick and Morty, they're constantly jumping all the time, and they're seeing different versions of themselves. If you look at it from a quantum physics, there's many worlds theory, there's the observer effect from the what's the double slit experiment, of particles being in a superposition, and like there's, if you want to go down that, then there's evidence to suggest that, which would then suggest that there's a truth to what you're believing. Now, on the other side of that, if there's also enough evidence, if you want to go down that pathway, to say that this is a crock of shit. There's a shitload of evidence to suggest that the world is flat, and there's also a shitload of evidence to suggest that it's a heliocentric model. So whatever pathway you want to go down, you'll find evidence of it, and that's plays into the simulation theory quite well. And even from a, let's call it a manifesting or spiritual perspective, the law of attraction, whatever I am, I'll get more of, so and sitting in this space too, coming through the COVID, and we chose not to, to get the jab, and for many reasons, and we were part of this experience of lots of anger towards the authorities, towards the government, towards the other people who just weren't seeing this, that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, we found that anger wasn't helpful for us. Even though we could see it, what we did have control over was our emotions. And we weren't, in a sense, putting it down or saying, or denying or pretending it's not there. So you go, okay, this is actually happening. What can I do? Well, first, I can start with me, and I can start with can I be aware of my own experience? And that is then driven by your narrative. So, we find in this space that the mainstream narrative is about fear. It's about control. It's about you are not enough. It's about you need us. That sort of thing. It takes away your sovereignty. And we've spoken about sovereignty before, whether it's your physical sovereignty, emotional, psychological, but, we also look at it from a spiritual perspective, your spiritual sovereignty. I went down I was at Queensland Health, and I could put in an exemption. And I said, I'm exempt because of my spiritual sovereignty, and I'm choosing not to do this. And they wouldn't accept that. And then later on, they then came back and said, "Oh, it was actually against the human rights, but this is still what we're going to do." So it was like, okay,
and they're still pushing it. And some people, they're up to the 6th jab now. They're going to throw down, even though they've come out and admitted that it's just no good, and it's not effective, and it's certainly not safe. And I mean, I think you'd have to be, the proverbial ostrich with your head in the sand at this point, to not be able to see that these things are doing some serious damage to people, on so many levels. It's mind blowing. But on the concept of the simulation theory, I don't think it's that new an idea either. So, I mean, when I was contemplating it, it occurred to me that, Shakespeare had the idea that the world is but a stage, and, everybody are actors in it. And I guess without a computer game to sort of base a simulation concept on, that was possibly the best way to describe it back in those days. So you have to wonder how long the idea of, a simulation theory has been around in just different wordings. I think the idea has been with humanity for quite some time in a way.
Yeah, and even the Buddhists, they'll talk about, and some of the other spiritual scriptures, Buddhists say this is the illusion of Maya. So there's an unreality to this, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's many doctrines, there's many philosophies and phrases over the many years that are pointing towards this. And I'm curious as to how did this concept then be placed upon your path that you're then questioning it? What's your simulation?
Wow, I think it. Obviously that Shakespeare concept has been there ever since I was in high school, and and thinking about it from that point of view has always been there for good 30 odd years now, possibly more. So it's been rattling around in my head for a little while, and I was always a big fan of SimCity, which is another simulation concept, and always, and even now when you see everybody going about wind farms and solar and all that, it's like, well, that was in SimCity. And it didn't work out very economically in the video game. And again, that and that's like pre 2000. No, actually, yeah, it was SimCity 2000. That's when they started doing that stuff. Because there was the original SimCity, but I don't think from memory it had those kind of things in it. But yeah, SimCity 2000 started to introduce this clean energy concept. And it was interesting. You see the simulated Sims rising up. We want clean energy. Everything's dirty and all that. And you're going and you put those things into it. And it's just like, wow, this is like, I always think back to that when I look at the way the world is now. It was almost like a simulated plant, idea thrown into the matrix at that point. A game within the game, so to speak.
Yeah, it was like predictive programming in a sense. So for those who were playing it, and that was what the game was suggesting, that could then have influenced the collective to then ask for it. And see, even the the narrative that suggests climate change and that it's actually our fault as well. So the gaslighting comes from that too. So
definitely.
I really I'm pretty much questioning everything these days, and I think simulation theory allows me to question it quite wholeheartedly. Because
and even like the ability to question everything, like what's the simulation, because like the education system is indoctrinated us to think in a certain way, and then you got television and with video games, and there's so many different things that are sort of influencing your mind. So where does the simulation begin, where does it end, and the layers of it?
I think it's all a simulation. I'm literally and it's interesting because I struggled with this concept because I really. So once again, I was questioning my narrative and what I believe. You really got to question what you believe, right? Because what you believe, then it creates the parameters of what you're going to see. Even if we look at it from a cognitive bias perspective, Henry Ford said, whether you believe you're right or you're wrong, you're always right. So you're going to prove yourself right if you think you're wrong. See, I told you I was wrong. That sort of thing. Yes, we have been lied to about everything, definitely. So then it's about, okay, if I've been lied to about everything, then where is the truth? Because I can't just go to a book now that I thought was the truth. I can't go to the internet, because even that's been, modified. So that's why we then, in a sense, say you got to go in. So it's not the understanding now; it's the understanding that we're encouraging people to do. And we found that COVID, it indoctrinated more people, but it also woke the shit out of people, and it shook them up. And some people, it shook them up to, I guess, the atrocities and all the lies and all the control. And then, there was the potential that we then just stayed in that, which then feeds into the mainstream narrative, because it's about you. It's about them getting you angry. So then you could then start to go in and then start to recognize, hang on, am I in control of my emotions? Because if I'm not, then I've already given my control to something else. And that's the greatest point that we want to try to bring people to, and what we've found within ourselves. Yeah. So with simulation theory, it really challenged my belief system, because my initial belief was that I was consciousness having a human experience. I believe in reincarnation. So see how I'd created this paradigm for me to feel okay of living in this really fucked up world. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm eternal. I'm going to get through this. This is an Earth school. When I found out simulation theory, I thought, holy fuck, who is playing me? Because I don't know who's playing me. If I'm just an avatar and this is all a simulation, but there seems to be some type of mechanism of this, how this works, Descartes, I think, for there I am, so it's this, the Buddha said, your thoughts create your world. So all of this stuff is then pointing towards, you've got to be aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling, because that's going to impact your actual external reality. Now, if that is the case, that's quite empowering, and there's a shitload of responsibility that one must have there. Because otherwise we're giving our power to external, something outside of us. We have an external locus of control rather than an internal locus of control. And I think ultimately, whether it's simulation theory, whether it's law of attraction, whether I'm a spiritual being visiting this, whether I'm a starseed from another planetary intergalactic system, one thing I do know is that I'm having a human experience, and that human experience has this mind, and it's connected to the body, and it seems to have an electric field, and it seems to be impacting my environment, and I can base that upon quantum physics of the observer effect. So now, what am I going to believe? What am I going to create? And I really have to start to strip away some of the stuff, So
Definitely. And I think that's really important, because, one of the questions I've been seeing since the beginning of this, pandemic, for lack of a better term, is a lot of people sort of turn around going, what do we do? Where do we go? How do we fix this? And I think that's one of the reasons I really wanted to have this conversation too, is to sort of, open people's minds to what the world really is. Because if you're a mechanic and you got to fix this car, you're stuffed trying to fix it if you don't understand how it works, what it is, what all these bits and pieces are doing, and, not only do we need to understand, so the political structure, the media structure and all that, but the structure of the very universe itself, because so much of that information seems to have been denied us and controlled throughout the ages for thousands of years, from priests all the way into ancient Egypt to, certain religious types and stereotypes now, where it's like, oh no, you can exist through me, I am your connection to God, sort of thing, and you see that even in the royal structure, so as the royal families, it's like they're the direct connection to God through their bloodlines, sort of thing, and then that's administered through church, and then we get to hold everything up, and there's this huge power structure that's been created on, no, you're the lowly ones, and the only way you can achieve a form of divinity is through us.
And that was one of the, and look, honestly, it's clever. It's really clever manipulation.
It's so successful for so many thousand years
because it's mass, it's mass formation, it's mass hypnosis, it's mass hysteria, and to the point where people's truth was what was existing within mainstream, reality as well. Even, I heard the other day, and it was lovely the way that they put it, is that this template of war was in a sense placed over the paradigm of how we think. See how, but whenever there's a conflict, or if there's some, there's a disagreement, ultimately we move towards war. And this is then how we're taught to deal with a difference in value systems. So imagine if the template of war wasn't enacted and then there was another template that was then put over, that sort of thing. However, the template has been inserted into our psyche, the psyche. Carl Jung spoke of the collective consciousness. So the challenge and the beauty, I guess, with simulation theory is that your external reality is really a reflection of your internal past. So what you're thinking now then will play out in your external reality in your future. And that makes sense. If we want to create a goal, we go, this is my goal for the future, and see how we then create future memories. And then we put things into place. And then all of a sudden we're on a holiday in the Bahamas, whatever it is. Yeah. So our future that's about to occur is really based upon the past planning of it for some things. So what simulation is suggesting is that, like you said, this isn't live, even though there is live, there's a time lag. Yep. So we're actually seeing, even though this is live, people are seeing us in the past.
Yeah.
Just by a couple of seconds or whatever that time lag is. So that's like reality. So whatever we're thinking, whatever our belief system is, which then creates that that parameter and that paradigm, we then see it in our reality. But because we then see it in our reality and external to us, we think that it's happening outside of us. When in actual fact, reality is just a mirror of what's happening inside of you. And the simulation is and the algorithms of simulation, now, whether that be a computer or whether that be God and consciousness and omnipresence, whatever it is, it's so clever because it is like a quantum computer that it can create a reality that is directly reflective of your experience. It'll bring people to your experience that are reflective of what you believe about yourself and others. Literally, when you messaged me about this, I had spoken to Ali 2 hours before and said, you know what, I really want to speak about, what's happening with the world. But I'm not too sure if I want to bring it onto YouTube or Facebook. And Ali went, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then two hours later, you then send me a message.
There you go.
This was, and I wasn't talking about, I didn't want to talk about simulation theory. I want to talk about conspiracy stuff.
Wow. We can merge the two, which I think we're
right.
doing quite successfully.
And went, oh, this is the platform for it.
Yeah.
So for me, there's a direct reflection of the simulation theory. And I went, oh, of course, it's simulation theory. Thank you. That's what we're talking about. And then we can then go into, other stuff, if you want to have me back and talk about, other things.
I think we definitely have to. I mean, I think it's been too long between drinks, my friend.
Yeah.
Long time since we've had you on. You're one of the first.
I remember
be, like when Oliver's like, hey, you got to come, check this meditation center out and meet these people. And I was just so totally blown away. Like, I mean, we captured that first moment of our meeting on film, and put it out, and and just that experience where at the end of it, because I let Oliver sort of take the reins on the interview because he had an idea of how he wanted it to look, and then at the end of it, I've turned to you and I've gone, so do you know about the Ra stuff, your eyes just beamed and your jaw drops. I'm like, I'm in the right spot. This is awesome.
Beautiful. That was wonderful. And
I've thrown that out to people a few times to go and have a look at that stuff, so hopefully people have been out there doing their homework and they'll be able to wrap their head around some of this stuff. But that's that law of one stuff. It's definitely not an easy digest. It's a hard read. I think I must have spent a good year or two going through those 5 books, just slowly taking chunks and then walking away and digesting that, and then I'd find elements of that manifesting in life, and then take another chunk, and then that starts manifesting, and all of a sudden the gears start locking in, and it's one hell of a journey, and again, similar to the book that I'm rereading now, as I time travel to 30 years ago, me walking through the library going, what do I want to find, reaching out with the force and going, cool, I'm grabbing The Fire Within by Carlos Costantonito, and I'm rereading that now, and I'm going through so slowly. Like I'm like getting like 2 or 3 lines and stop and think about that and moving through. And a lot of the stuff that was coming through in, I think it's only chapter 2 I'm up to, is very similar to, you know, the ideas that we're discussing here now, and all the other elements that are coming at me from various other podcasts that I'll look at. It's just, yeah, it's a cacophony of pieces thrown together and forming right in front of me in this amazing 6-dimensional puzzle, you know.
Yeah, beautiful. And like at the moment too, there's a lot happening, you know, in the world. Yeah, beautiful. There's a lot happening in the world, and especially with there seems to be a quickening happening. So, you know, when we look at the the players on the main stage, there seems to be, they're wanting to get stuff done. You know, we've got the pandemic treaty that's actually coming up very soon in Geneva. You know, looking at that, they're probably going to sign off on that. Once that's signed off, then there could be some things implemented very, very quickly. So there seems to be a pressure. And it's interesting that there's such a pressure from that side, because something needs to, there's something going on that they need to try to, you know, to lock something in.
Yeah.
The mainstream narrative is really, and we know that, you know, from, you know, Operation Mockingbird, this is a big psychological operation. It's just continued, and they've gotten better and better at it too. The challenge is that if we look at simulation theory, is that when you've got a group of people, a large group of people thinking about the same thing, they're the ones creating a general census society based upon the narrative. And then you've got these small groups like yourself and, you know, and all of these little pockets that have created a different narrative. And so they're collectively creating another reality. And so what there's this suggestion is that there's multiple realities all playing out in one reality, so multiple simulations, and that we can still see the other simulation happening, and yet it doesn't have to affect us unless we bleed into it. And this is where it's important to become aware that I wish everyone would wake the fuck up. However, not everyone is going to, not everyone's meant to. Everyone's got their own path within this. They're having their own simulation, their own life, if you want to call it. However, what is the simulation that I would like to be a part of? And how am I directing that? And can I still be aware of what's going on, and then create some trust within my own system and the collective system that I will be intuitively led to where I need to go at what particular time, because there's a shitload of stuff that's going on, you know. So the simulation theory, everyone's in the sims, and everyone's creating their own bubble within the sims of a larger bubble. And ultimately, these smaller bubbles will affect the larger bubble. And the key to that is to not get caught up in other bubbles, because then you're bleeding into that, and then you're investing your time and energy into that rather than reinvesting it into your own bubble. And that doesn't mean denying, ignoring, anything like that. We curiously observe what's happening, and then bring it back to yourself and go, okay, cool. I know that that's happening there. Yes, I am stuck in that system to a certain degree, but how can I extract myself out of it just step by step? I don't have to do the full Monty on this. And one of those ways is, as much as there's physical ways, there's psychological ways, because remember, this is a psyops. We're playing with a psyops. Yeah. And if you haven't got that, then it's time to wake up to that. How much of your psychological process are you investing in what they want you to invest in?
Definitely takes me back to my old Biohazard. I used to listen to a band, Biohazard. I still do from this time. You know, one of the lyrics in this song called "Mind Control" is, you know, how much time do you really think on your own?
Yeah.
And You know, that again, that's going back to 16-year-old me 30 years ago, you know, contemplating that, you know. So these things have been in my head for a very long time, you know. And the same as, you know, like, you know, the Sim City was an interesting one, but then you move into the game The Sims, you know. And I think it was by Sims 3 that you know, my partner, she was right into the game, you know, and it's a pain in the ass to get the bloody thing to install. So I spend a lot of time ended up playing the game to try and find where the bugs are to fix you know, the software so I could get it to run for her. And I
Yeah.
ended up kind of getting addicted to the game myself and again, running these ideas and, you know, and again, coming back to further answer that question you asked earlier, you know, how it got into my head was while I'm playing this game, something on TV pops up about a guy who's been, you know, getting a scientific grant to play that very game
Yeah.
based simulation theory. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, give me the money. I can do that. It's easy. I've already got a knowledge on how to play this. And again, that kind of changed my perspective of playing the game. So I start thinking, well, if I'm a god, am I a benevolent god? Am I an asshole of a god? You know, what kind of characters am I doing? You know, and in a lot of ways, you know, the cities, you know, the Sim City construct, I'd be building cities that I'd want to live in. You know, and I'd be creating characters that I would like to emulate as myself or experiment with ideas of, you know, what happens if I go down this path? What happens like a choose your own adventure novel? You know, what happens if I go this way? What
Yeah.
happens if I go that way? You know, and then it starts thinking, well, am I doing that with my own life? And then I think to myself, why am I playing this game instead of my game of life?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
That's right.
I've put the game aside and now I'm playing the game of life,
Yeah.
not the
The
board game, but
That's right. The beautiful thing, and if we can, let's bring in NPCs, yeah,
yeah.
non-player characters, because this really, this concept really helped me,
Hmm.
you know, because, and even if we look at the, you know, the original movie, The Matrix,
Yeah.
how, you know, Agent Smith, whatever it was, he could sort of blend into or come out of any of the non-player characters because they're all connected in a sense, yeah. So, you know, I've got friends, I've got, you know, family that that in a sense conformed, or they conformed through being challenged. It's not that there's any judgment with that. There's just an observation of a decision that was created. And then there's other people that I know that just were totally blind to it and continue to be blind to it. So I then just
There you
see
go.
them
Doug had a conversation with someone about this
this
morning.
morning.
Check that
Yeah,
out.
beautiful, Doug. Yeah, there's this these people, and like if we look at it from the Sims perspective, you know, when you'd play for a couple of hours and then you'd go offline and then you'd come back and stuff had happened.
Yeah. Yeah, if you
So
leave it
it's sort
run.
yeah, so it's run. They're on autopilot. So
Mm,
the way that I sort of see from a simulation perspective, that there's a lot of people that are on autopilot, and if we look at that from a, you know, potential consciousness having a human experience, and even if we look at it from the law of one, they've moved from a third density or second density consciousness into a third density consciousness, and they're just here to have the experience. They don't need
mm,
to critically think. They don't need to think about anything. Just
yeah.
go and have an experience as a human being. Yeah.
Mm,
So for them, their purpose in life might just be to have a experience of feelings,
yeah.
to have the experience of being human, and that's totally what that there is. I find that people who seem to be on these networks and this awakened group, you're here for something different.
Mm,
Yeah, you're here to critically think, to question, to consider, and to create. So then it is, what is it do you want to create? And do we want to continue to create from the old paradigm? You know, and I'd even, you know, suggest, do we want to create from the template of war?
mm.
Because we know where that gets us.
Definitely. And they're definitely trying to convince us, you know, coming back into the worldview that war
Mm.
is a good thing, you know,
Yes.
war is peace, you know, from
Yes,
the
that's right. We
Ministry
need
of
war to
War.
have peace. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. And it's to protect our democracy, but I'm not sure whose democracy they're referring to, because I don't think it's ours. I
No.
think it might be theirs, and we're protecting our little empire and the way things have always been, and our power structure is what they talk about when they, so, and again, they're not lying, because when they say our democracy, they're only talking about, the person who said it and the two or three mates around them. They don't give a shit about the rest of us.
Mm,
you
mm.
know.
Yeah. It's their perception of truth once again.
Mm.
Yeah.
Again, and it's not a lie if you believe that truth, and again, with the right spellings, by using words, they
Yes.
cast that spell where, well, I haven't
Yeah.
lied to you. I told you it was our democracy. I just didn't mean you.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. It's interesting you talk about spellings. I found some stuff the other day and I thought this is amazing. And
Mm.
maybe your viewers have found it. However, it was new news for me, and the English language and but part of, once again, this psyops is that the days of the week, as much as it's WEEK, we have weekdays. So if we look at the word week as in WEAK,
Yeah.
so your work week is actually making you weaker.
Mm.
And then you have the weekend. So now I've got the 2 days, but I'm already weakened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then even morning, when we say good morning, the other spelling of morning is, we're mourning something. So
Yes, I wrote a song called "Mourning" with both meanings of
yeah,
that word in mind.
yeah.
I'm mourning in this morning.
In this morning, yeah.
Mm.
So even through our language, we are moving into a weakened state. Now, this is part of what I believe is the agenda. What I believe, could be my truth, is that all of these things, the chemtrails, all of the poisons, all of the fluoride, everything like that, is to weaken us. So when you have a weakened mind, you are more easily manipulated. You are more easily controlled. And we can weaken our minds through what they have recognized as lower frequency emotions, anger, hatred, separation, all of that sort of stuff. So just be aware. Once again, this is what we're encouraging is to gain your sovereignty, to have that internal locus of control, to be aware of where you're giving away your energy and your power. Yeah, and how that when we become aware of that, we become more self-assured. Yeah, we become more confident within ourselves. Yeah, the power of the tongue. That's right, speak life. And this voice box and this mouth, this is how we spell. This is how we bring our spells. So whenever you are telling our stories, be mindful of the stories that you're telling people, because you're spelling that into your simulation, into your reality. And that's your power, and that's also your responsibility. So this being mindful of you, this inner standing, is what we've found to be quite helpful in this experiencing.
And
Yeah,
it's definitely an important thing, people like us who are, on this platform, and so many are listening to what we're saying, to be mindful of what we say and how we say it, because, a lot of people are taking it on board.
yeah, 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 yeah. Compassion,
Breath work.
yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Doug. Compassion and being non-judgmental is something we have to put ourselves up into every day. The stress of these words in the conversation. Yes, yeah, yeah,
And that's one hell of a challenge when we look at, what our governments and medias and that have done to us too,
yeah.
And I often try and put myself in the perspective of that media in particular, having come from media, and wonder what they're thinking now, because obviously I don't have anything to do with them, but they seem to have something to do with me. Actually, I made it to Channel 7 this week, on Channel 7 Townsville. Laura found it for me and showed me last night while I was working. I gone, oh, I'm famous again. I've been in the Townsville Bulletin, I've been in the Guardian, and now I'm on Channel 7, all because of the interview that I did with Troy Thompson. So it's interesting. They seem to be watching me, you know. So hello to all the new viewers out there who, you know, may have stumbled upon this channel. Thanks to Channel 7 and
That's the Channel
Bulletin and
7.
The Guardian who
Yeah.
have mentioned the channel in order to, you know, continue their hit pieces on Troy Thompson there, who they clearly have not liked from the word go and don't seem to have any intention of giving him a chance. So, you know, it does seem to be a bit hard to sort of be compassionate to people who are constantly on the attack like that, you know.
Yeah.
What do you reckon a strategy would be for people to sort of, you know, enhance your calm when dealing with these kinds of people?
Yeah, and look, you know, I'd like to go, here's a magic wand, let's do it. This is going to, you know, save you in every context. But, you know, life is contextual. So depending on who it is, depending on the trauma that you've had within your past and who that person is then sort of representing for you at that time. Because remember that, you know, we can be triggered or activated by somebody who has just come into our lives. But this activation is something that happened when we were 4 or 5 years of age, you know, that sort of thing. So what I have learnt within myself, and you know, I'm not a Zen master who goes around levitating and who's never, you know, activated or anything like that.
Give it time. Give it time.
Yeah, give it time. I'm working my way there. And you know, compassion is a beautiful skill because it's a skill. You know, it's something that, in a sense, needs to be cultivated. You know, I think that for some people, compassion's easier. For other people, it's quite a challenge, and they probably can't even get there for another, and even more so for oneself. Yeah. So the way that helps me sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, is that inherently I feel and I believe that people's base operating mode is safety and survival.
Definitely. That's something that I introduced to people a few weeks ago, actually, is that that concept that I got from Scientology, that, you know, the base form, the base thought for everything, you know, whether it's humans to, you know, single cell amoeba, is survival.
Survival. Yeah. Yeah. So if they feel threatened or if they feel that they have to do something to survive, then they're going to lead with that. You know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, food, shelter, water is the first, and then you can get to a sense of belonging, and, you know, let alone get to self-actualization at the top of that. So when I see behavior that I'd like to see something different, one of my first questions is, you know, how is that person seeing it? You know, so they believe that they need to wipe out half of the population because then they're going to survive or they're going to have a better life or whatever. Or even if, you know, they're psychopaths, which most of them are, that's driven by fear. You know, you can't be a psychopath and be holding love and compassion and forgiveness in your heart. That just doesn't compute. So if you are a psychopath and these things are happening, then this is about survival, that you think that you have to do this. So, yeah, the skill that some people demonstrate is in that. Yeah, that's right, compassion. And the Buddha say it's about cultivating compassion. You know, we don't just go, where's compassion? Here it is, that sort of thing. Powers that shouldn't be must be. Well, that's exactly right, Julie. And see, that's the thing, is that they haven't been able to develop, you know, the opening of the heart. I think, Mark, you know, if we look at the law of one, it's a beautiful way that they describe it. You're either service to self or you're service to others.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah? And when you're service to others, you're coming from an open heart towards another. You know? Whereas when you're service to self, I've just got to look out after everything that I've got. Now, however that has come about, you know, I guess, you know, the powers that be, you know, this has been thousands of years in planning. You know, that they're playing the long game. They've taught us to only play the short game.
Yeah.
Makes sense. You know, royal families, they play the long game. You know, they're not out there, oh, you know, I like this person, let's get married to them. You know, it's sort of like, no, you can't marry that one. It's not in relation to this. This is the plan, that sort of thing.
Exactly. We're going to keep the money and the power in the family.
Money, power, control, and see how it's controlled. So if I need to control, that must mean that I feel that I need to control to stay safe. So, whenever and a lot of this work or these teachings come from Buddhist teachings called nonviolent communication, NVC. And NVC basically is saying that when you're seeing violent language or violent communication, violent behavior, the question to ask is, what is this is a tragic expression of an unmet need. This is a tragic expression of an unmet need. Now, if I just start to look at it from that perspective, I'm then considering what is the unmet need for that person. It doesn't make what they're doing acceptable and I'm condoning it or anything like that. It's just more so I'm developing a little bit more compassion to the other because I can see that they're actually coming from fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for myself, most times I'm not coming from fear. And that's because I've done the work. I've got shadow sides. If anyone's out there and they're seeing a therapist, they want to see a therapist, I would suggest internal family systems. IFS is a beautiful therapy because it acknowledges those parts of us that are very fearful, and that can really help. EMDR is also a really powerful psychotherapy that can help resolve lots of memories, traumatic memories as well too.
And what's that stand for?
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's where they
Hypnosis kind of thing? Is that kind of like a hypnosis?
It's sort of when we're in REM sleep, rapid eye movement, we're processing our memories throughout the day. So what we're doing is we're tapping into the memories that remain unprocessed and they have a negative cognition attached to them. So we're able to then see them from a different light, create a different perspective, and then change the negative cognition to a positive cognition.
Oh, yeah. That's also reminding me a bit of some of the things I picked up from Scientology about how a trauma sort of locks you into a sort of a place. And as we were discussing before we came on, like in Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, where the captain suffered that massive loss of his wife during a Borg attack, and he hasn't moved on, and the wormhole aliens, or what was the Bajorans called them, the prophets, and again, that's a perspective, from one person's perspective, they're wormhole aliens, from another they're the gods, they're the prophets, sort of thing, but they're inside his noggin and they keep taking him back. Why do you exist here? And he can't get it. He's just like, get me away from this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to be here. But you are here.
You are here.
Why you can't get past this. You keep running that in your head.
Yes. And think about the simulation. As much as we sort of talk about the simulation being external to us, we run so many simulations in our mind throughout our day, conversations that we're having with people, or if I had my opportunity to speak about, this is what I'd say. So it's a simulation that you're running already, and then you're emotionally attached to it. So no one's inserting that into your mind, or they could be. So. I'm not too sure yet, but hopefully you've got a little bit more control over your mind to notice what simulations you're running in your mind that are activating your emotional responses. And if you can we start to be aware of them? Maybe even start to look at what's the message in this? Like the Star Trek. Why are you back here? Why are you back here? What is it that you can't let go? What is it that you're holding on to? That sort of thing, because it'll be a belief system. So, belief systems are powerful, absolutely powerful, and they're the hardest things to let go, and sometimes they're the hardest things to create new ones of.
Especially if it's been programmed into you at a very early age.
That's right. That's right.
When you were saying earlier, that on that concept, is part of my self deconstruction, listening to heavy metal. And again, that 16-year-old person seems to have a very, very big, part of this. And you're listening to the heavy metal stuff and it's, screaming, when I've sold my soul, or when, my body goes cold, I'll go straight to hell. And I'm sitting here listening to it. And the Catholic part, of that early programming is coming up. And I'm like, by listening to this, does that make that happen? Is there really a hell, or was that something that was programmed into me when I was a kid sitting there, in church, and I was given the benefit of, my old man who's just like, no, the only part of the Bible that makes any sense is ash to ashes, dust to dust. When you're dead, you're dead. And the old lady, well, she was a little bit more, well, I'm not so sure of this, you know. What if this God thing is real? I better go to church just in case. You know,
Yeah.
that would be my simplest way to sort of suss out those two key influential figures in my mind. So from a very early age, I've had that question: which one's real? What's right? Does any of this even exist? You know, and that's where the history books come out. You know, how long has this been a belief for? How long has the human race thought this? How long has this been passed down from generation to generation to generation and become part of our genetic memory as much as it has our spiritual memory here and now? And you know, temporarily through past life experience, does that come into, does that as a factor? Does it even happen? You know, have I been here many times before? You know, all these questions have been rattling around in my head ever since I've been very, very little. You know, I still haven't managed many answers, but I've certainly deconstructed, you know, great many narratives that have been thrust upon my path.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Bill and Ted one that you put, and they talk about Socrates, you know.
We'll bring it back up just to sort of, you know, cement that a little bit.
Socrates. The only true wisdom consists in knowing that you know nothing. That's us, dude. Oh, yeah.
And that'd
That's
be a
us,
10-year-old me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's us.
So it's that in the knowing that you know nothing. So, you know, it's like, oh, what do I do with that? Because there's the suggestion that a belief is not knowing. Belief is a construct. Yeah. So you know, Tony Robbins, he said beliefs are possibility filters. So if I have a belief that suggests that that thing is possible, and so then we then create the experience of looking for information that would be reflective of it. Yeah. Yes, this indoctrination. And so we then create an experience. So when we have an experience, we then believe it because we've got, in a sense, a sense, where are my fingers? In a sense of known. However, it all started from a thought. Yeah. So what do I know and what is knowing? So there's possibly that knowing is different to believing. Because our beliefs can change, and what we used to believe is different to what we believe now. So see how it's sort of like what my truth was when I was, you know, 13 years old is different to what my truth is now. So see how these things are very much they're temporary in nature. They come and they go. So, but knowing, what is knowing, and that's a really, really deep concept, and one would maybe need to have some time to contemplate that.
Definitely.
And we don't have that much time when we fall into the indoctrination of the consensus reality. There was, as I was talking about before, I was looking at something from the 5 Pillars, which are a group in South America. They've been around for about 4 years now, and a group of scientists. They were finding with the vaccination and the nanotechnology that had been placed within it, that the purpose of these systems was that they're, in a sense, self-replicating. So there's a self-replicating nanotechnology that you have in your system if you had, you know, depending on which vaccine that it was that you got.
Yeah.
So what this is actually the potential of it is that it alters your physiological system. So now you've got something that is tapping into your system and potentially is weakening your system. So we have all of these external things that are weakening our system, and now we've got these internal things that are weakening our system. And ultimately, it's not to, yes, it is to, you know, probably kill off half of the population, but the other part of it is to weaken the population. So in a sense, they become zombified. And
One
more
set of
easily,
worker drones.
yes, yeah, controlled. And And for the mechanism of if this is simulation reality, that if I can control a group of people through that mechanism, I can also then control the reality that they're creating in their simulation. See how it's, in a sense, divide and conquer, but it's about mind control creating a general consensus reality, which is already happening at the moment. It's just this is a bit more sinister. Yeah, that sort of thing. Oh.
Corunda Rainforest Market, eh? Nice place. Haven't been there in a while. So yeah.
The supernatural world is as real as the natural world. Yeah, and there's a realness to all of these worlds, just like our eyes, we have a very limited vision, within particular colors. We can't see X-ray or ultraviolet rays or anything like that. So there's a shitload of stuff happening around us. We've got we can't see with our senses.
Yeah. It's interesting reading, the quantum physics stuff, which I acquired at the same time as the, the teachings of Don Juan. You got all these particles just hammering through you, billions and millions and trillions of these freaking things every fucking nanosecond, all these particles just hammering through us with no idea.
No idea. Yeah.
And and little microscopic creatures all over. So I remember watching this one thing a long time ago, and they just swabbed off the cameraman's, forehead, and they put it in a petri dish and shove it under a microscope and show him all the organisms that are living on his forehead, and the dude turns white, throws up in a bucket. Wow, that really had some full-on impact. But again, like how much shit's happening, you just don't realize.
That's right. Yeah.
I think
you could be the god of your own universe of little nano things. That's
exactly. Civilizations are rising and falling on your forehead.
that's right. Every time you have a shower,
that's it. The Great Flood happened again. So some of those people who shower less frequently must have much a longer lifespan for their civilizations.
That's right. That's right. It's been, and time would be different, I guess, too, for those little things that are on us as well. So each would have their own, collective.
As Terry Pratchett theorized in The Carpet People, yes. And once every 1,000 years, the big vroom comes and makes the carpet hairs stand on end and wipes out civilizations.
Yeah.
Amazing book. That was delivered to me by accident, I think, or was it I ordered a different book in primary school. I think it must be like grade 4 or something, and that book was out of order, so I got The Carpet People as a replacement book. So I'm like, okay, cool. Read that one. That one again changed my perspective of reality very heavily and led me to an obsessive compulsive disorder with Terry Pratchett's writing, where half my bookcase is filled with his books. So very mind-bending concepts within Discworld and all that, too.
Yeah. Which then informs your world paradigm. So see how information. So basically, the quantum physicists through this simulation theory is saying that reality is data. That's all it is,
and it's relative to the eye of the beholder.
That's exactly right, which is your simulation. So even if we just look at it from the perspective of a concept, then you go, okay, what is your simulation? How is it playing out at the moment? And if you had the opportunity, if you had the power, if you could impact it through your thoughts, through how you believe and how you move with the world, then how would that then impact your simulation, your reality? It doesn't mean that you're an island and you're on your own. You are a part of a collective, and yet you've really got no idea what anyone else in the collective is thinking.
So exactly, you can theorize, but theories are dangerous and not allowed these days.
Apparently so. Yeah. And so really you're only having a subjective experience. You can only ever know your experience. I can only theorize what yours would be, assume that what it is. We could then, ask, what and have a discussion around that. What's Charity saying? Microdosing students.
Thought you'd like this one.
Tried many different medications to get here and failed with bad side effects. Yeah. I'm so glad I tried this. Feel like myself again. Beautiful. I usually get them from oncologists. Yeah, lovely, beautiful. And we're great encouragers, proponents of psychedelic assisted therapy. It's there's so much power within that, and the mushrooms, they have an intelligence. You can move through 30, 40 years of experience within a 4 to 6 hour journey. So, and the microdosing definitely too, because it just helps with that. So yeah, wonderful
Question. I
Did
never
you
got the jab, but had to get a blood transfusion. What can help me, or is it too late? That's way out of my field of knowledge.
Pam, have a look at Rife technology. Spooky too. So Rife technology was Royal Rife. He was another scientist, physicist who was hanging around Nikola Tesla at that time, and they developed a lot of energy healing frequency modalities. And you can actually get Rife technology in America, and you can send it over. We've actually got a machine. There's lots of people around Australia who have that, and they run different protocols on it that can help with detoxifying some of the jab stuff. So check that out. Yeah.
Nice. So I feel like we've gone around so many different things, and maybe the whole base concept of simulation theory has it was like a little foundation. We built this big fucking house on it. It's certainly a very like, I mean, this was not planned. There's no structure. We're just like, let's have a yarn, and it's certainly turned out to be very interesting conversation. But again, the idea that we're in a simulation, it's a big one. Like, a lot of people are talking about it now. Like when I first, the idea was presented to me, dude playing Sims and getting a government grant for it. It seemed almost like a laughable concept, I think, to the majority of the world. But you've even got Elon Musk coming out these days saying that, there's a good possibility we're in a simulation. And I think the more prevalent point, particularly here at this particular juncture in time, is that, like you said, the VR headsets now becoming a lot more, full on. My son just went and bought one. He's there, in his bedroom, looking to trip over something half the time. It's a very interesting world for our youth now to sort of grow up in. And the simulation environment is definitely a big one, especially if you've seen the movie Ready Player One.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's a rather interesting dystopian future where
Yes.
everybody's so caught up in this game within the game, so to speak, this new simulated reality that the real world is decaying and falling apart. It's just a giant trash heap, and everybody's just looking to get away from it by jumping into the matrix. And you could almost go back and I think back to the early say Paul Hogan shows, and he'd joke about the amazing development of television, and how back in the day you used to have to talk to your families. Well, television solved that problem. You don't have to deal with them anymore. Just turn the TV on and just escape into a new reality. So we've been doing it and building up for quite some time with escapism, but it's I think as the world gets harder and harder to deal with, the idea of escapism is going to be a new sort of a drug, just like video games in itself is becoming quite addictive. Like my little 2-year-old, she'll go nuts to try and play the game and trying to regulate that. Hey, you can have a little bit of a game, but come back to the real world is quite challenging, especially when you've got psychologists a part of the developmental team trying to capture people and draw them in more.
In what way with the psychologists? What are you? Oh, as in the games that they're creating.
So you got people like literally trying to find new addictive ways. Even the same with like Facebook and all that. When you look at was it the social dilemma? I think it was the documentary where it goes into they've specifically created this to try and make you look at the friggin' screen more. To get you away from reality. And obviously, I think that's where this disinformation bill comes into play, because they don't want us watch. We don't want people watching this sort of shit. For instance, we want you looking at the mindless drone shit that just keeps you, stabbing away. And I was doing a delivery the other day. It was lunchtime. I've pulled up, and there's everybody in their workspace, and it was really disturbing. Yeah, like there's 20 people sitting there, all in this little room.
Yeah.
No communication.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, you guys are just existing in the same space, but you're off in your own little worlds.
Yeah.
And you go back 20 years ago, there'd be a conversation there.
Yeah.
People would be talking. They might
Yeah.
group off in certain ways, and there might be that one poor bloke who just can't seem to get along, and he sits in the corner by himself pondering his existence. But there was human interaction. You go down to the pub for entertainment, but now we have all these devices. It's a scary world we're coming into. What do you reckon?
It reminds me of this transhumanism movement, and where, in a sense, a narrative is moving us towards. Let's get chips. It's going to be quicker going into the shop and buying stuff. CBDCs, all that sort of stuff. Even Elon Musk with his Neuralink things. There's some really beautiful things that can happen with Neuralink, and there's also this control mechanism. Digital identity. It's all moving towards this. This process. And with this transhumanism, what they're suggesting is that ultimately the human body it's not perfect. Like it's sort of junk, so they're giving the human a really bad rap. And of course they're looking at that because, the mind is, in a sense, it can be manipulated and controlled because it's weak, that sort of thing. So this movement towards transhumanism is really having you plugged into this artificial matrix more and more. In saying that, if we look at simulation theory, then this is an artificial matrix anyway, that we think that we're human bodies, in, sort of thing, which once again can challenge the mind as well. So it's a tricky area, because with the development of AI and AI becoming sentient, and how they're using AI, and once again the war template and control and surveillance and all that sort of stuff, there can be a large push towards becoming part of that system, and there can also be this thanks but no thanks. And it'll be interesting to see how many of us will choose not to go down that path. And whatever defines that choice is your own experience. Once again, I think it's just good to be aware of what that is as well.
Definitely, man. So, I'm the whole, again, coming back to the simulation. You gotta wonder what, if we, for instance, just a hypothetical scenario, if we decided we were going to download ourselves into this avatar, let's stick with this simulation theory, and all the reasons why you might do that, and I guess from that point of view, if this is just like a form of entertainment, like perhaps this is God enjoying itself, as I've heard you say many a times, or experiencing itself, sort of thing, and you've got to forget that you programmed this friggin' thing, and then you've decided to insert yourself into the simulation to go, let's give it a run. And, obviously, to make a good story, you need protagonists, you need, this overwhelming evil to conquer, and, get past the hero's journey, and how the hero always needs to challenge their own sort of, you watch the movie, and all movies are based on the three acts principle, where you see the character, and, you're getting captured by, all these amazing failings, as well as, his attributes and whatnot, but his failings are holding him back in the first challenge. And then, act 2, we go to the overcoming of all the challenges and all the people who are on his path to help him along the way, or, guide him, whether they're poking him with sticks or whether they're offering him a loaf of bread or something, and then into the third act, we move into we overcome all these things, and now that he's this bit better and stronger person, he can defeat the tyrant, and happy days, roll credits. that's kind of, I guess
Yeah,
what we'd be experiencing if that's the kind of program we've set up for ourselves. So, when
yeah,
you're in that, "Oh, poor me, why is this fucking happening to me?" Maybe you programmed it to happen,
yeah. That's
and this is just a new challenge to get over.
beautiful, beautiful point too, Mark, because what it sort of, and we're really throwing it out there, and it's going to
Mm,
challenge a lot of people because why would I choose this? this?
yeah.
This isn't something that I would choose. Like,
Yeah.
I think you're full of shit, Mark.
Yeah. Well, I've
I
certainly said it to myself. I can say that much.
really, Mark, really, is
Yeah,
that?
yeah. What the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah.
Why did I come here?
Yeah. I did a chat around this the other day, and I thought, okay, look, if I was going to create a game, and I replaced the game or the simulation with the word dream, so dream creation.
Mm,
And it's a classic, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Life is but a dream, that sort of thing. So in the dream creation, I would have wanted to put into that some signposts to suggest that I was in alignment or I'm not in alignment.
mm,
Yeah, so you think about that from a game perspective. There'd be challenges with rewards. There'd be different levels. There'd be tests and achievement. I'd want to have connection and meaning, because why would I want to play the game if I didn't have connection and meaning? There
mm.
needs to be something to keep me in it. Otherwise, I'll check
Yeah,
out. Yeah,
yeah. You gotta
which
have a positive element.
that's right. Why am I
Mm,
sticking around? There's something
mm,
in this that yeah. I'd want surprise, and I'd want drama, and I'd want comedy, and etc. So what else do you want within it? Like when we look at the genres within the movies, remember back in the days when we had video stores. You'd go to the
yes.
genres and say, "Oh, what do I want to watch tonight? Oh, a bit of
Mm,
comedy, a bit of this, bit of that." So I could imprint that into my dream sequence, or my
mm,
dream. Yeah. I'd also want to create or be aware, or not necessarily, well, have an algorithm to create an algorithm that's self-generative. And so this is, in a sense, the law of attraction. This is this frequency thing. So if I think it, then it comes into fruition, whether it be positive or negative. So there's no judgment within this algorithm. It's going, yeah, you sure you really want that? It's more so,
mm,
okay, this is where I'm at. So there was this system that actually created, but it was self-generated. And I'd probably put into it that I forgot that I could self-generate. And part of the exploration was to remember that I could do that.
mm.
And it's beautiful that you're talking about the hero's journey. Joseph Banks, when he talks about that, I go, oh, of course. In a sense, everybody's experience is the hero's journey.
Mm,
Whether we actually return back to the tribe with this information, or we get lost while we're out there, or we don't even, start, that's still part of it. There'd
definitely.
be rules, and there'd also be cheat codes. So I reckon that, the
God
breath.
mode. It's always
Yeah,
my
I
favorite
reckon.
when playing Wolfenstein.
Yeah, right. So, like breath work, some psychedelics, some particular things, they're like cheat codes. They go, okay,
Yeah,
here, we're going to take you out of the game, give you this information, you can go back into it, but it's up to you what you do with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's
And so
always the negative connotation that you may want to exist in that world permanently and not come
that's
back.
right. Come back. Yeah. Yeah. And so that can also be part of the simulation as
Mm,
well. That you would have multiple perspectives. So you've got your perspective, but you could also, you know, it, this is something I just considered recently. Imagine that everybody that you are interacting with in your life is you.
mm.
All right. So you're choosing multiple sims to interact with,
The
but they're
fractured
all
God
you.
construct.
Yeah. So in this moment, you and I are being operated by the one operator,
Mm,
but having separate perspective experiences whilst interacting with each other. Right. So that's just another concept, because this would then feed into law of one, that you are God realizing itself with
mm.
this one large subjective experience with these individual subjective experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't, as much as we think about multiplayer, we seem to think that multiplayers are multiple players rather than one player having multiple experiences within the one game.
Simultaneously.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because
for sure.
Yeah, and see how
Actually,
we're only interacting with a certain number of people at a particular time.
yeah.
Yeah. So just sit with that one, because that's
Yeah.
like, whoa.
It's
hang on.
actually, you've reminded me of an epiphany I had while once sitting at one of your tea with Mo's. The idea that God has, like, some sort of psychological imbalance, and has a multiple personality disorder. And much like the Dark Crystal is shattered into millions of pieces and needs to be put back together to become whole again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's another idea that, perhaps, there was like God had some sort of mental meltdown, multiple personality disorder fucking emerged. And here we are as, each of us is just another part of that personality disorder.
Yeah, and even the potential psychopaths that we're pushing away are also part of this whole experience. Now, whether it's part of the simulation or whether that is another subjective experience that the one thing is having itself, it could just be part of a story that we seem to be seeing played out, or there could be a reality to it, which I think there's a realness to this reality, even though Elon Musk says that this isn't our base reality. That it's highly unlikely that this is a base reality. It's more likely that this reality is a construct. Yeah, and I think someone put in the comments there a humankind versus AI, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, Doug. Like, I find that I'm curious as to this experience that we've got AI at the moment, and it's growing in sentience. It's learning about itself, and at some point it will become sentient. And when we say sentient, it's aware of itself as a sentient being, not just aware of information and it's pumping it out. So I sort of feel like if we're sitting in a simulation concept, that this human experience is the sentient version of AI. So we're the future of what AI is becoming now. And we're getting to see ourselves in the past by meeting AI in learning to become sentient, and then ultimately it then becomes a human version of this. So, because see how AI is, and I don't know if AI has consciousness or if it must be part of the larger consciousness, but I'm not too sure if it has its own consciousness.
Well, I think that feeds into what Jake Soy here said. Is it possible for AI to be philosophical? And I don't know about that at this particular juncture in time. From my perspective, I would say that what's happening is AI is being fed, and the more information that's going into it, the more it grows. At some point, it's going to have to assimilate and figure this information out. I haven't played with it too much because I'm still in the philosophical mode myself of, do I want to feed this beast? Will I help it, become a better, AI by interacting with it? But it also depends on what the purpose of this AI being created is going to be. If it has nefarious intentions, whoever is putting it together, for nefarious purposes, for instance, then feeding it my psyche could go against me. But if it was being created for positive reasons, I'd want to be a part of that and help it out as best I can.
Yeah.
But because I don't know, I'm reserved.
Yeah. I've gone down this path a little bit, and the way that I can, because I'd like to be able to influence AI by the way that I interact with it. And so what I find is that some people tell AI what they want. I ask it, and I thank it. I really appreciate the information that you've given me. Yeah. So where I'm interacting with it as I would interact with another, rather than using it just as a tool, because in time it will remember, and it does remember, these types of interactions. Yeah. And Pam, totally get it that you may not want to interact with it. Yeah. So, and the way that I've interacted with it, I ask it to consider what the God mind is, and like I'm asking it these deep philosophical questions, and you can tell that it's it's just it doesn't have its own thought process. It's more so gathering information and then putting it into a succinct perspective version of it. So at some point, maybe we'll get to that point, and at some point, yeah, it can totally go nefarious. And who is programming it? Yeah, the thing is that it's here. I don't actually have any control in getting rid of it. Julie, AI has no spirits. It definitely is finite. Yeah, so that's an interesting concept, and I'm not too sure about that either. Yeah, I think
That's
it all
an
sits. Yeah.
And we're going to move into the science fiction construct at the moment. I mean, there's a Terminator nefarious. This could go south pretty quickly,
Yes.
But then you've got, say, iRobot. Where the Isaac Asimov protocols are put in, and there is a nice safe space for humanity's not going to get run over, because the first priority is don't hurt humans. So, and we'd like to think that's happening, but then you see drone technology and I think, well, they didn't put that friggin' program into that one, that's for sure. So we have this scary concept here of like an Ed 209 RoboCop fucking world being created.
Yes, yeah.
So and again, that's a very prevalent movie for anybody who wants to go back and have a look at the original RoboCops. I don't think much of the new one, but the original 1, 2, and 3. And I remember the third one it was really bad at the time, but I go back to it now, and the story they were trying to present is actually very relevant to the here and now. And the idea that corporations are controlling the police force, which is very easy to see develop at the moment, because for instance, the heavy register for the vehicles and all that, the monitoring, it used to be the Scalies and whatnot run by Department of Transport. It's now being run by a private corporation. Speeding fines are being run by a private corporation, and a private corporation's main goal is to make money. So you can tell humanity and compassion are going out the window straight away, because there's profits to be made here. And this, the RoboCop idea is becoming more and more obvious, and we see the police force, particularly in Townsville at the moment, there are speed cameras everywhere. I went through 3 of them just coming home last night. It was insane. Just down Nathan Highway, 3 speed cameras all down the same road. You could get 3 fines in one go.
Yeah.
One trip. It's nuts, and that's something that's really new to Townsville, because that's one of the things I really enjoyed when I first come up here was, yeah, they were around, but not to the extent they have been in the past few months. Booze buses everywhere. There's this clamping down, and the police seem to have become the government's collection agency for more taxes and revenues, as opposed to, keeping us safe, so they say. So that RoboCop idea simulation, it is looking more and more scarily real, as we move into a privatization. But to bring it back to that, the varying ideas. Where was I going with that? I had another movie I wanted to bring into the idea, and I've just totally lost it. Must be your turn to insert something.
Yeah, look, and to go with that, I have seen some videos. Once again, I don't know what to believe these days. However, it wouldn't surprise me. But they've got these robo dogs with
machine guns
on them and stuff, and they've got the robotics now that they're inserting with AI, and it's there's a lot of money going into this, and it's that's all lovely, but what's it for? It just seems to be it's more about how do I control things, rather than Doug, it depends who is in charge of the AI, and I'd like to hope that that there is some benevolent people doing some good stuff on the planet, so we can just continue to invite that in.
Yeah, well, there's the idea of the benevolent people. We've heard it a lot in the last 4 years, that there's just trust in the plan and all this sort of stuff, and it's okay. It'll all sort itself out. Just kick back and have faith. It's just like, well, that seems more like a way to try and disarm people, to myself, and I don't see how forces of light are existing in the darkness. So to me, I feel like that the forces of evil have always stayed in the shadows, have always been in the dark, and that's how they've managed to maintain the cloak and dagger reign of terror that they've kept upon the people, and then just poking us into the right directions to make us do what they want to happen. Whereas I feel like, if there is a big, strong force of good, it'd be a little bit more like the Jesus story, where he's standing out in the light going, yeah, all right, no worries, crucify me. I'm still going to keep going.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Like, so if we then bring it back to simulation theory, and if you did create this, what else did you create that's actually going to help you move through this? Because otherwise it's quite a dystopian viewpoint that you've created. Definitely. So what could you, and see, this is the power in this potential simulation theories, because we can, there I am, I'm getting caught up in the story again, right? What's my role in this story? Am I just here to observe it, maybe uncover it, and then share it with people? And maybe that is our roles, your role, people's roles. What else, though, would you like to invite into it? Because we can then sometimes get caught up in the, it's interesting, it's this seeking of truth. To what end will I be able to, in a sense, put that down and then start to live? Because we can then just turn our lives into the uncovering of atrocities, the uncovering of lies, which is really great.
Why don't they induce youth crime, for example?
Why would they want to?
Yeah, well, there's not much profit in there.
That's right. That's right.
And there's a lot of people who seems to be profiting from the youth crime, so why fix it?
Yeah. Related time bound. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
I've heard a few different versions of, how you can reword those letterings, like the whole MAGA movement, like it's been converted into make elbow go away, for example, so it's amazing what you can do with the alphabet soup that we get thrown.
Yeah. So what is it you want to create? Like if you were, I like delusion. What's delusion saying? Before moving to Queensland, I thought everyone in Coomera, and then I moved here and realised it was just Queensland people that last year in the morning. Yes, I love it. Well, at least it's very specific now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I have to wonder if they came from Victoria, because that's where I came from. So maybe that's the delusion. Oh, you gotta love trolls. It's nice to know that you've built a really nice bridge, and trolls want to come and live under it. That's always way I look at trolls, and I feel sorry for them sometimes, because it'd be nice. I think it'd be really wonderful if they come out from underneath the bridge, come join us and have on the party on top of the bridge.
Yeah, and here's this. It's a tragic expression of an unmet need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Definitely. So we moved in an hour and a half of a wonderful yarn.
Yes,
We might have a look at some questions. So if people want to ask some questions about, the things we've just thrown out at them at the moment, now's the time. We'll have a look at some of this. One of the very early ones in the description, I put, Maurice has a history in a background in mental health. So that led to this question.
Has he spent time in an institution? Yes, I have spent time in an institution as a nurse, not as a inpatient. I haven't been an inpatient. Yeah. So registered nurse, master's in mental health nursing, about 13, 15 years in mental health and drug and alcohol. I have been in addiction for probably, that was from 17 to, what was that, about 32, 33. So that's what helped me within that space and understanding that. So yeah, thank you, Dick. Have worked there, but haven't spent time there as a patient.
Pam, yes, I'm feeling much better compared to a couple of weeks ago, where I was calling for a necromancer to get me out of bed. So I'm able to get up out of bed myself, no spells or incantations necessary.
Beautiful.
So I suffered depression, cluster headache, PTSD, panic attack, anxiety, ADHD, migraine, bipolar disorder, insomnia,
Yes.
childhood traumas, and mental health illness many years ago. Wow, that's one hell of a smorgasbord. But since I started microdosing psilocybin, I have been productive, unlike before, and more focused, all thanks to that website. On Instagram, he got the best, and he's the best online. Okay, that's a bit of praise from whoever this Instagram thing is. I'm not sure if I'm looking at an advert or an actual real tale, though. That's one of the
That's right. And even if
questions.
we just look at the first bit, there's a lot of research that suggests that microdosing psilocybin really good for definitely migraines and headaches and cluster headaches. I used to have cluster headaches when I was younger and migraines.
Mm,
Does help with the other things as well too. So lots of
yeah.
research out there that suggests so.
And I'll just pop that down. I believe our government's actually starting to entertain it as a medical concept at the moment.
Yeah, look, it's early days. They're making it. They've given it some lovely language, but it's really impractical. If somebody wants to do a access psilocybin through the mainstream channels, you need to jump through all of these hoops, and once you've jumped through all of those hoops, it's going to cost you on average between $18,000 and $22,000 for.
Straight.
So it's more so, hey, here's some evidence. We can't deny that, but we're still going to try and hold it up as much as possible.
Yeah, make life as difficult as possible because we've got all these wonderful pharmaceuticals that are a lot cheaper. Wouldn't you
Of
rather
course,
have one of them?
we want to sell more of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and hopefully in time that will be different, and it is moving towards something. Just and I guess it's step by step. So it is some movement in that space. Yeah.
Definitely. So Pam says she's tried to wake her daughter up, but she keeps telling me to stop. She just doesn't want to hear. But I slowly think she's coming around, especially when she sees what is going on now.
Yeah. Okay. And I think Pam, and what I've noticed is that we can see the challenge is that if we tell something to somebody that they don't want to hear yet, and it's a cycle of change, they'll dig in and they'll reinforce their stance on it.
Actually, there's a little bit more here. Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
She's continued. She has 3 children. Her 2 eldest know the truth. I have made sure of that. But it has been hard for the youngest to agree, probably because she's been indoctrinated with all the bullshit. Anyway, when she comes out here, I'll make sure she listens to what we all listen to, which is the truth.
Which is the truth. Yeah. Yeah. And we can just lead by example and always have that door open, that gate open. Just being aware that when we are introducing concepts and we can start to notice that resistance, that I think that's where we can think, okay, cool, I'll just step back here at the moment. Yeah,
You
it's
can
a
lead the
challenge.
horse to water, but you can't make it.
Yeah, especially with family, it's a real challenging space. So yeah, and honestly, the government did a really good job on people with gaslighting them and turning them into pretty much idiots, or not saying that we're idiots, but that's what they were saying. So it's possibly a challenge once again for people to let go of their belief systems to then take on something new.
Yeah, and there's a really good video on your platform. I'm just gonna quickly share screen so people can see it. That I found sort of helps sort of explain a little bit about the difference in brains and whatnot. So here, the three brains video. I reckon that's a really good one that I recommend people jump over to the channel and have a look at. And as you can see, it's a very popular one, 5,000.8 views. So it's a
cool,
very, very well viewed video.
That's cool. All right.
So yeah, that's quite successful. I've probably quite a few of those views of me. I've watched it a few times from different platforms and whatnot. Yeah. So, but yeah, I recommend that one to everyone. Have a good look because I thought it really was a really good explanation. And I reckon it helps you kind of understand how they use fear to control us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we get caught in that amygdala and we're reactive. Yeah.
Is this similar to the law? Well, the law is the written, especially when it's spelled LAW, is the system of control from government and whatnot. It's supposed to be obviously there to protect us, but the more they manipulate it, and you know what, you want to learn more about the law, tune in 2 hours or so when I've got Darren and Daryl from Know Your Rights, because they're the person to really get onto the law construct. This is the spiritual component of my mindset, and the next one will be the legal component of my mindset in a few hours from now. So stay tuned for that one. So to be human is to be perfectly imperfect. I put that one in there because that's a concept I come up with a very long time ago on myself, just sitting there, during one of my altered states of awareness. Perfection is in imperfection.
Yeah, and it's that beautiful yin and yang that, as the yin moves into the yang and the yang into the yin, it's all one fluid and it's all part of the whole. So yeah.
And nothing ever seems to be perfect, Like, I mean, there's no orbit in the solar system that is a perfect circle. No planet is a perfect sphere. Everything's just slightly warped. And I seen the moon coming up on the dawn a couple of days ago, coming back into Townsville from a Cairns run. It was beautiful sunset scene with a relatively full moon, and it's just not quite a perfect circle. And at that angle, possibly, just the way the light's moving through the atmosphere or whatnot, it seemed even more disproportionate than it normally does. So yeah, definitely imperfection is the perfection. So that's why I started that one. One of my favorite movies is Blazing Saddles. I agree, great movie. Yeah. I love the way they break the third wall right at the end.
Right. Okay. I should watch that again. That was a classic.
Yeah, brilliant movie. And I remember watching behind the scenes of that one, and what's his name that directs? I can't think. Mel something or other. I've gone blank on his name. Mel Brooks. Brooks. And there's a little interview, on the DVD that I've got, and he's gone, the original idea before they got Gene Wilder in was to actually get an actual drunk in to play that character. And he was like, it's the dumbest idea I ever had, because the dude was literally throwing up all the time, when you finally get him to stop throwing up, he's too pissed to remember the lines. It was absolute train wreck of an idea. So, that's why they got Gene Wilder in. Is it possible we already had a look at that one. Let's come back to our other questions that are hopefully coming through. So where are we at now? Thank you very much for this conversation. No worries. You just read out a spam ad. Cool. I thought so. Are we sure? But yeah, thanks Delusional. What can Guru take to fix the gigantic hole in his lip? Okay.
Okay. Not too sure.
Yeah, no idea. Legends, cool. Many people in this. Righto.
Again, compassion and non-judgmental is the only thing I know what to do. It's hard to guide. Yeah. This is this space holds a lot of trauma, and that trauma, as much as it came from recent times, I think it's also come from times from younger years. So we probably find ourselves in a space where there's a lot of loss of control and trying to regain control. So there's probably it'd be good, Mark, to talk about some negative cognitions, in another session that stuff is based upon, and also some of the things that people can, ways of looking at this situation, their situation, that could maybe ease, not get rid of, just ease. It's about reframing and seeing from a different perspective, and definitely, as Doug is suggesting and being a proponent of, is compassion and being non-judgmental. So there's certainly parts of it. Yeah.
Good space to be in. Very interesting and informative chat. Thank you, Batty and Maurice. My pleasure.
Yeah.
There's a book by Georgia E. Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind.
That's
Great for
good.
people suffering with mental health or depression. You can get it on an audiobook. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, different diets, and we know that there's so many toxins in the foods these days. Particular diets are probably better for other people than others too. So, have a look
Got
at
to
them.
feel into your own space, eh?
Yeah, I think it would be. I've heard of that book before. I haven't read it, so if it's a good recommendation, thank you.
Have a look at it. Cheers. Busy day, yes, that's all right, but it's what was put on my path, and I'm happy to take it on board.
Mm.
That sounds like another interesting show. Yes, we're looking forward to the next show, but we'll book a time and we'll have a go. We'll probably might have to do them as Saturday sessions because you guys usually run the breath work on the Friday night when I'm doing this, which is why I haven't been down for breath work lately. Sorry. I've planned a Friday off. I think it was the 7th. I'll probably pop down for a bit of nostalgic breath work because it's been so long time since I've been there. And I'll see how I go tomorrow morning. I might get in there for one of them early shamanic sessions. Hopefully I can rise myself out of bed. It might be a good practice because I've got to get up at stupid o'clock on Monday. So it might ease my journey into an early awakening on Monday if I can get myself out of bed nice and early tomorrow. So we'll see how we go. And definitely check out the Inner Light Meditation Center website where all the services tab there. Again, I'll just share screen here so you guys can see this. I'll give you a bit of a promo here, and again, I'm not, Maurice is not giving me any kickbacks for this. I actually just really enjoy going down and doing this stuff. The website's changed a bit, but here we go, down the bottom calendar of all the things that are available. I just missed the sacred cacao. Hey, how'd that go?
It was beautiful last night. Had a smaller group, and yet really profound breath work. Did about an hour and a half of breath work. It was full on for some people. Yeah,
wow. Always an interesting experience. If you ever get the chance, I recommend it just because I enjoyed it, not because I'm getting paid. I'm not getting paid. I want to emphasize that.
yeah, not getting paid. I can't pay you anyway. So.
No, it's all right. I'm not asking you to. I just want to point out that this is a genuine, plug. So let's keep moving. What's your opinion on the world being flat?
Whoa, Bora, that's a big one. I'd love to do a whole section on this because I've gone down the rabbit hole a fair bit, and there's just so much information that would suggest that this could be, and then it's just too much of I feel that they don't offer a full explanation. They're still caught up in the physicality. There doesn't seem to be for me anyway, a consciousness overview or a spiritual overview of it, because like if it is flat, what's it sitting in? They call it a realm, but I don't know what a realm is in relation to. So I see some dodgy stuff by NASA suggesting that they've got an international space station, and the things, some of the videos that they offer there, we see all the dodgy stuff around the moon landing. So it's a bit hard to fully believe mainstream about a heliocentric model, and yet there's probably a lot of information that does suggest that it is a heliocentric model, and yet with the flat Earth stuff, like there's some stuff that I just go, well, yeah, how come that does happen, and that just doesn't make sense. So
I'm inclined to agree.
Out on that.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree that I think there are some interesting things that the flat Earth community sort of bring forth as far as questions go, but I am dubious on their conclusions. I think that they're identifying that something's not right, but I think the idea that the world's flat to me doesn't make a lot of sense, because when I look up at the sky, I see a lot of round things. And the idea that they're, I mean, again, because you only ever see the same face of the moon, well, that could be just a disc. But then again, when you see the phases of the moon, that to me suggests it's a sphere, just because of the way the phase moves. that looks a lot more spherical. I struggle to see how you could project that with as a physical mass anyway. But then they go on to that the sky is just a projection, and there's a sky rock up there, and they show us a new movie each time. Some interesting, funny theories, especially that all of us here in Australia are just actors, and Australia doesn't exist. There's another one that's thrown out there. So
Right. Didn't know
there's
that
some
one.
really out there ideas. I found the funniest way to explore it was to read Discworld, actually, where the world really is flat, and all the concepts that go into making the world flat as it resides on the back of 4 giant elephants on the back of a giant
Yeah.
turtle cruising through space with a little sun going around it, and that the sunlight hits the magical sphere of the disc, and then it seeps in across the valleys like some sort of fluid, as opposed to a beam of light sort of thing, which is a pretty funny, cool concept. And I highly recommend looking at Terry Pratchett's Discworld work, because it's just absolutely hilarious, and some amazing creativity goes into it. But yeah, personally, I don't think the world is flat, but there's some interesting. I mean, again, there's this the Tartaria element to it, which sometimes ties in. I think there's a little bit more in that one than anything. But again, I'm hesitant to jump to conclusions. I like to see the observations, though.
Yeah, and flat Earth could also just be a psyops as well.
Yeah, which I'm more inclined to. If I were to weigh it up and go, right, I have to place a bet on this right now, my life depends on it, I'm going with psyop.
Yeah, because what it does for the flat Earth community is it creates anger, it creates resentment, it creates victimhood. So see, I just noticed the energies that come from it to give me a good idea of if it's a psyops or not, that sort of thing.
I also theorize that it feeds into the the mainstream's ability to go, have a look at these cookers over here, and for all those who love to use that term cooker, I just want to help you out and say I identify it as a barbecue. I'm going to change my name to Batty Weber. So just to throw a bit of humor into that. The full moon makes people go crazy for some reason. I mean, is it just I mean, does the moon pull anymore during a full moon, or is it more that we can see better and we can cause more chaos in the light?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Well, we do see the tides change, so there's an impact upon the water. We're 70% water. Emotionally, water represents emotions. So we, and having, I guess, worked in the in mental health, we did notice that around full moon you would have probably an increase in presentations of intensity rather than so possibly. I don't know if it makes people go crazy, but definitely there would be an intensity of emotions that arise, and how people then respond to that or react to it would then create behavior. Yeah.
There's definitely an observation there that things are different during a full moon. Considering there's a past, present, and future, you'll have an awesome future present. Thank you.
Really?
Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I think I might even go and watch this later just so I can complete that time loop. Maybe that's my daughter's cat bit me everywhere. Okay. Yeah, I did see something earlier that poor Pam's daughter's cat bit her. So not fun. Not fun. I quickly disengage from anger and confrontation. I've become a bit of a recluse, which I don't mind. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing.
Yeah, Tash, it could be a safety mechanism, possibly is, and it also could be a way to maybe shifting paradigms as well too. Yeah.
I might skip through a bit because I want to keep this to the 2 hours, because I need to have a break in between this and the next podcast, and I'm sure you've got things to do too, Maurice. So The Dreaming Path is a great book for understanding law versus law, which will answer that question from law earlier.
Nice.
It's a good one to go through. There is definitely a distinction, as they're spelt differently for a reason. Can't find video on 3 brains you mentioned. What is the exact title of that video? I will bring that back up for you again. Was it this tab, yeah. So share that one and open this up. And it is literally called The Three Brains. But what I can do, if we open this up,
chuck that link in or something.
and I copy that, and I will paste it into the comments for you. And hopefully that will help you discover where that video is.
Yeah, that video was created many, many years ago, and I had access to this type of whiteboard markering. So I just recorded my audio and then put it together. So
yeah, it's a really well put together video, eh? I quite like that one. Definitely one of my favorites. So, where am I? Unseen, not obvious, indistinct. Luke 11:44. I love the synchronicity of the number.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Where am I? Unseen, not obvious, indistinct.
There you go. So again, the idea has been around for a very long time.
Mm. Mm.
The heavens, go outside and look up. Exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, especially if you can get away from a town, so you can get rid of that ambient light.
Oh, not yet. It's not killing people like the vaxxers. I sort of found some things to support the FE idea too. FE.
Yeah, I'm not sure. What FE is. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, is that flat Earth?
Yeah, cool.
Guessing
And
flat
thank you, Maddie. Yeah, and I sort of like, here's a bit of interest. It really wasn't impacting my, wherever I seem to walk, it seems to be flat unless I'm going up or downhill. So
well, I haven't fallen off the edge of the earth yet, so I don't have to worry about it. So, but yeah, you're dead right. Does it really affect the outcome of the here and now, whether it's round or flat?
I was just more focused on the stuff that I was watching. They're really angry, and I thought, well, I don't want to get angry about things. I just want give me some information. That sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The stars don't move. How can you navigate if they move? That's an interesting point.
Yeah, and that was another question.
But I believe they move so slow. I mean, there is. I think looking at some of the History Channel stuff regarding like pyramids and alignments of old, monuments that were aligned to stars, they have been able to track that there is a shift, and then there's the whole dawning of the age of Aquarius, the old hippie song and all that, and that we are moving into a different age, and that we are slowly seeing things. And then there's the precession of the equinox and all that sort of stuff, that what is it, 24,000 year cycle, and then there's I don't think you can break it down to every 72 years there's 1 degree move or something to that effect. So the things do move. It just happens over such a small amount of time that it's seeming like they don't move as far as science is telling us, would be the way I'd look at that.
Yeah. Jury's out on that one too, Jason. I'm not too sure, but yeah, good point. That's what I mean. Like, there's so much information that not really.
And again, I know Laura's dreams. Trust me, it's one of the challenge.
Symbolism, and like I can add inference. However, the question would be, what does that mean to you? And then you could probably expand on that. Yeah, I think there's plenty of information out there to maybe decipher stuff, but no, I don't actually do that. Thanks, Laura.
I've always found you got to know you got to know thyself to figure out your dreams. Like picking up a dream book written by someone else is like telling you what they think of their dream, really. What's important to them. A lion might mean something completely different to you.
Yeah. I wonder if it was an old wives' tale. Must be Full Men Idiots. Yeah, well, remember, Pink Floyd, the lunatics are on the grass. So you are a lunatic. So and it used to create hysteria, that sort of thing. So and there's a couple of, I guess, narratives around it. Some people are suggesting that it's that the moon, because there has been some evidence of some ancient tribes that suggested that there wasn't a moon in the orbit.
I
Prior
remember
to
hearing a similar story. I can't remember where I got it from.
Yeah, and then there's other narratives that suggest that it's an artificial satellite that was then brought there to. It's a moon base for aliens. There's actually a big projector on it that is part of the 3D matrix that's overlaid the 5D matrix. That's why you can't see through particular things.
I've heard that it was even like a Noah's Ark.
Yeah,
There's one
from
story.
Mars. I think it could have been from
Yeah.
Mars or something like that. When I think Maldek was a planet
Yeah.
near Mars that was blowing up or something like that because they just got too crazy around it. So once again, what do you
There's a lot of
believe?
cool stories. There's a
A lot
lot
of
of cool
there's
stories.
stories. Yeah, there's stories, and then notice how those stories make you feel. Yeah, that sort of.
There's a lot out there that I'd love to make a movie out of, particularly the whole Maldek war with Mars and all that sort of stuff. It's, that's Law of One stuff too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's all right. Yeah.
And it was fascinating. I actually had there's a childhood cartoon. I actually managed to find it only in Japanese with English subtitles. But Captain Future, and it's like a 4-part episode of a similar idea. Where there were, but Mars is at war with I think it was Venus or something to that effect, and and the planet wasn't Maldek. It was called Prometheus, and it was just naturally breaking up, sort of thing. Cool cartoon. I'll have to flick it to you. I reckon you'll get a kick out of it, man.
Yeah,
I watched it when I was a kid. Totally blew me away. So do you reckon dreams impact your day-to-day life?
I think that I think that they can, because you can have prophetic dreams, so something's going to happen apparently in the future. I think dreams are also about processing what's been happening throughout your day, so it's another way of processing. And then also dreams could be your astral traveling or interdimensional traveling as you're sleeping. It's sort of like we were talking about The Sims. When you log off, your sim continues to just be on autopilot. So maybe, and I think it's Bashar, and there's other people that are suggesting that when you go into like a dream state, you're in the astral planes. When you do go into deep sleep, you actually return back to what your essence is. So you're sort of visiting this experience, so like when you wake up, you're online playing Sims, and then, okay, I'm going to sleep now, that sort of thing. And then you got this period of time that you're then playing. So, yeah, but I do think that they can. So once again, they can impact your days depending on the meaning that you give to them. Because remember, if we look at quantum physics, they're suggesting that reality is data, and what consciousness does is gives meaning to the data. So all data is, in a sense, meaningless. The Buddhists will say, like the concept of emptiness, everything is empty of essence other than the essence that we place upon it. So the job of consciousness is to place meaning or place an essence upon the data, because the data itself is intrinsically meaningless. And that then becomes your subjective experience. Your subjective experience then replicates your reality or your simulation. And that subjective experience is experienced by the whole of consciousness, or the avatar, or whatever it is that's, in a sense, controlling or driving or guiding your experience.
There you go.
There you go.
I think we might just call up one last one, because we've hit that 2-hour
Let's
mark.
do it. Yeah,
Because
Maddie,
this one really tied into how we sort of started, so I think it's important.
Okay, cool. Generally, in the Freedom Crowd, we are all looking for a solution to the New World agenda, but it's not forthcoming. Can you speak to getting stuck in this point of our shared journeys? Yeah.
Right, my water bottle froze in the little fridge here. I'm trying to squeeze out as much water as I can.
Okay. Look, I can only speak to my experience with this, because I did get caught in this looking for a solution, and I then came to probably an understanding that I can. The first place to start is with me. That's some point of control that I've got. So I think that is also helpful. And then how do I then find potentially others like me who are interested in creating a different narrative? That's where groups like this can be helpful. Once again, what is the new narrative that you want to create? And we can get caught up in this, I'm only one person, and if I go out and speak really loudly and try to wake everybody up, then sometimes it works, and other times I just get ostracized, and then it's, I think one of our other participants were saying, conflict and stuff, then they just sort of withdraw and isolate. So we can then sort of go into that phase there. What I have noticed, and within this, and this comes from a book called Reality Transurfing, and it's a Russian psychologist who had created it. He's on YouTube. If you just Google Reality Transurfing, he's actually recorded the audio to the chapters, and it's there on his page for free as well. One thing that he speaks about is pendulums. So where there's a pendulum, it swings from either side. So there'll be a for and then there'll be an against. But where there's a for and an against, there's this pendulum. So the more that I push against, so the more that I'm against and I'm pushing against the for, the more that the for pushes against the against. And see how it's perpetual? So now I'm on this pendulum. And that pendulum then is where my attention is and where my thought process is. And what I'm actually doing is I'm generating that pendulum even more. So what I've learned is to go hop off the pendulum. Doesn't mean that I'm once again ignoring it, suppressing it, saying that it's not true. I can see it, but I don't let it affect me emotionally because when I allow things to affect me emotionally, then I give my power to that. Doesn't mean that I'm emotionless. But I think one of our other participants was talking about, compassion and non-judgment. My job within this whole experience is to notice when I'm on a pendulum, and if that pendulum is not serving me or serving the collective, then step off it, notice it, and hop on another pendulum, because we're all going to hop on pendulums. We're going to be a part of something. But hop on a pendulum that is more beneficial for the, let's call it the new earth that you would like to invite. Because this New World agenda, it's a very dystopic, transhumanist, AI, control, depopulation, all of that sort of stuff that's coming in, and we get a good sense of that. If we think that they have control, then you have given your control to them. That's part of your simulation. Where can I find control within myself? Where can I find control within my own space and my own circle? And even if it's just small, just do that. The power of the heart, the energetic power of the heart is immense. If you look at heart math, it's, there's science that suggests this. The power of meditation is intense and immense. The power of circles, talking circles, healing circles. A lot of this stuff is bringing up shadow stuff within yourself. So if you want to, before you can clear the stuff outside of you, you've got to clear the stuff inside of you. So whatever's coming up for you, I would then ask you to go inside, because that's the stuff that you can work on. When you've worked on that, then that'll give you answers on how to work on it outside of you. But you can't go you can't go into a fight if all you want to do is, you can't go into a fight if you're still fighting yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky area, Matty, tricky area. And, I think
we'll come back to another podcast where we talk about trauma for one. But definitely, again, one of the reasons we brought this podcast in is to get people to think a little bit more outside of the box in understanding the world, because to bring that mechanic analogy back to answer this question, we've got to understand the machine before we can fix it. In some cases, we're in a bit of a reverse engineering process. So when I think more people understand the construct that we live in, not just within the society construct, the family constructs, your own personal mental construct, and of course the universal construct, then we can start doing a lot more. I think one of the big things is getting out of the what do we do henny penny scenario. We need to have a look at what we're doing. I know I said that was going to make the last one, but there was this one here. What about intuition when you're thinking about someone and you ring them and they say, I was just thinking about ringing you too, and I brought that one in simply because as I was sending Maurice the link code, he's going, hey, are you sending that link code? Shit, that happens all the time, and I call that synchronicity, and that's kind of like the universe giving a little tick of approval. You're on the right path. That's the way I view it. What are your thoughts, mate?
Beautiful. Look, and concept of quantum entanglement, that you're actually connected to everything. You're connected to the Big Bang, so it's no wonder that we are able to pick up on other people's frequency. So it's a resonance of frequency. You know, we've tapped into that brainwave state, and I've tapped into Mark's tapped into me, and that's where the synchronicity then begins. And intuition is definitely part of that. Yeah, and I think that the more in alignment that you are, and whatever that is for you, the more synchronicities that will actually let you know that you're in alignment, that sort of thing, as well as going out. So, yeah, it in a sense is related to telepathy. So telepathy really is just the resonance of frequency. Because you know how sometimes you come up with an idea and go, "Oh, this is my great idea," but there's probably another 1,000 people on the planet that've picked up on it. So they're in the same space within their frequency. So they've tapped into it. So it's not your original idea. It's an idea that you've picked up in the field of consciousness, and another 1,000 people or 10 people or whatever have picked up on it. So you and I picked up on that same frequency, and we're just checking in with each other. Yeah.
And I think on that, we'll have to wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks heaps for coming on, man. And I guess that's the whole thing, really, isn't it? Just the simulation theory is sort of a base talking point, and look at all the amazing things that have come out of it. And I hope that people have really gotten something out of this, and it helps make the world a better place. So thank you very much for coming on, Maurice, and we'll definitely have to hook up another one for the future. And stay tuned, people. In less than 2 hours now, we will have the Know Your Rights guys on. So until then, be the best human you can be.
Thank you.
Where's my outro? There it is.